Welcome to the next workshop in our White Library Wednesday workshop series. This one is entitled Cite It Right, How to Avoid Plagiarism. Tonight in this workshop, we're going to talk about some of the nuts and bolts of citing. We're not going to get into the details on how you cite resources. We do have upcoming workshops on those on APA and MLA that will cover that type of information. And if you have other questions about specific citations, you can always contact the library for assistance. So let's go ahead and get started. One of the first things we want to consider is why should we cite? And there's a variety of reasons that we would not want to use citations. One of the first ones is to give credit. When you use somebody else's ideas or their words, you want to make sure that you give credit to them for coming up with those ideas. And so we do that by providing citations, both in-text citations and our sources cited or our bibliography at the end of the paper or the research that we're doing in order to let them know where we got the information from. Another one is to avoid plagiarism. When we use somebody else's work, especially if we use their direct words, we need to make sure that we give credit, especially for a direct quotation. If we are using the words from another individual, we need to make sure that we put quotation marks around it and let people know that that's where we got the research from. And so, like I said, using somebody else's ideas or their words helps us to avoid plagiarism. Another is our credibility as a researcher. As researchers, when we do research, we go through a lot of resources to create the papers or the projects or the journal articles or the books or whatever we're writing. Might be a thesis or dissertation. And being able to provide the sources or lists of sources that we utilized helps our credibility as a researcher. It also shows that the amount of research that we conducted and what we looked at. So it provides a list of resources that we consulted. And finally, it provides a trail for our research. And so it provides that information if somebody wants to know what resources we used or they want to go to those resources, it provides that address. And so it's similar to when we mail a letter, we need to make sure that we have the address on the front of the envelope so that it will get to the right person, so that the postal worker knows where to deliver it. Same thing here. This provides a trail or an address for the resource that we used, so that if somebody wants to go look it up, they can do that using the information that we provided. So when should we cite? Well, there's a variety of reasons that we should cite. As I mentioned earlier, direct quotations. If you are taking the words of somebody else and it's more than just one single word, we need to make sure that we are putting quotation marks around it and that we are giving credit to the person that we took the words from. You don't need to cite well-known facts or information that is common knowledge. For example, Abraham Lincoln was the president during the Civil War. George Washington was the first president of the United States. The sky is blue. Those things that are well-known facts do not need citations. But if it's a fact that is unknown to your audience, you may want to cite the source, such as statistical facts, or maybe it's more specific information about the topic that you're looking at. If you're doing that, make sure that you're citing those sources. If you are summarizing or paraphrasing, that usually means that you're taking somebody else's ideas, and even though you're using your own words or rearranging the words, you still need to give them credit for their ideas because they're the ones that came up with it initially. And so if you're summarizing it, paraphrasing, do a citation. The final one is, I would say to err on the side of caution. If you're not sure whether or not you should cite something, I would say go ahead and cite it. It's probably better to have too many citations than to have not enough. So which style should we use? Well, the styles are very discipline specific. The different disciplines are going to use different styles. Here at Emporia State, a majority of the disciplines do use APA style put out by the American Psychological Association, but there's a variety of other styles too. For example, English uses MLA. History and social sciences, a lot of them will use the Chicago Manual of Style. So you really just need to figure out which style is being requested. And if you're publishing a journal article, sometimes those styles are dependent upon the journal. So it's something to check into, like in the instructions for authors, or make sure you check with your department, your thesis or dissertation chair, or whoever you're creating this, or maybe you're just instructor for a class. Because they may have instructor preferences. Different instructors have different things that they prefer to have somebody cite. I work with a lot of departments on this campus, and even within a single department, sometimes there are a variety of ways that people would like to see things cited. So make sure that if you're doing an assignment for an instructor, you know what they prefer. The most common ones I've kind of listed here on the page, things like APA, which is from the American Psychological Association, MLA, which is from the Modern Language Association, Chicago, and then Turabian, which is kind of an offshoot of Chicago. I've also listed AP. There's a Council of Science Editors. There's also American Sociological Association. So there's a variety of different citation styles out there, but these are some of the most common. And as I mentioned earlier, particular journals in a discipline may have their own ways and have their own style for a particular journal. And so knowing how to do that, you may need to go into the instructions for authors and look to see what they are telling you in terms of how to create the citations. Usually they'll tell you what they're looking for, and then they will give you an example. And I know that even some faculty members will use those journal citations as a style that they recommend for their students in their courses. So what makes up a citation? It really just depends upon the type of resource that you are citing to know what you need to put into that citation. But the main things you're going to put in are obviously the authors, the year of publication, the title, and where it's published. And so for a book, that may be a publisher and a state, a geographical region, so it'd be a city and a state. For a journal article, that's going to be the journal name, the volume number, the page numbers, the issue number, the DOI in some instances. If you find it online, it might have a retrieve from and a URL. If it's a website, it's probably you're going to include a URL. If you're a chapter out of a book, you'll include some of the book information, but you'll also include editors and page numbers. So it just really just depends on the type of resource that you're citing as to what you're going to include in that citation. So how can I find information on creating these citations? Because to me, this is really kind of confusing. Where do I go? There's a variety of things. Here in the library, we have print manuals in our Library Ready Reference section. And so you can just come in and ask for assistance, and we'll show you where those are. There's also online resources for manuals. One of the things that I've found more recently is like the American Psychological Association has their own site on their citing or their style manuals. Within that site, they have a blog, and in that blog, they do a really good job of answering some of the tough to cite questions. The other day, I had somebody that was asking about how to cite a YouTube video, and I was able to go onto that blog and find the information that I needed. One of my favorite resources is the Online Writing Lab from Purdue University, or OWL. And to get to this, I would just Google OWL, and then you're able to go to it and get the information. They have really great resources on APA and MLA, and then they also have a site for Chicago. And so if you have a quick, easy question, that's usually a good place to go. Finally, here at Emporia State, we've created several library research guides that are that you can get to from our library homepage by clicking on the Research Guides tab, and then by searching for APA or MLA, and you should be able to find those guides, and that will also provide you information on how to cite. Also, a lot of our resources are starting to provide citations. And so, for example, if you are using Google Scholar, or if you go into Google Scholar with a resource, they have a cite feature. If you look, when you do a search on a topic and you come up with articles, right below the information on that article, the title at the bottom, it says cite. And if you click on that cite, you're able to get a citation. Our ESU discovery tool or search tool, the search box that's on the main ESU library page, also has a citation style or a citation tool. If you do a search in it, you have a list of records. You click on that record. There's a little symbol that is probably a sharing symbol, but it's a box with an arrow in it. If you click on that, you're able to get to a citation tool. A lot of our databases now have citation tools. And so you can go either, most of the time they're going to be on the right-hand side of the screen. Sometimes at their top, sometimes they'll provide a citation at the bottom. So you just need to take a look at it. One of the things that I want to caution on all three of those, Google Scholar, the Discovery Tool, and the databases, is to double check those citations. It's okay to copy and paste them into your project, but make sure that you have gone through and looked at those to make sure that they're totally correct. Because occasionally they'll make mistakes on, especially with capitalization and punctuation, but just go ahead and double check on those when you use those. Word has a reference or citation feature built within it. And it's nice. One of the things about the Word feature is it's what we call GIGO, which means it's garbage in, garbage out. So if you're, for example, in APA, when you're typing the title, you only want to capitalize the first word of the title and then the first letter of the word of a subtitle, and then any proper nouns. And so you want to make sure you enter it into Word that way so that it cites it correctly for you. Finally, there's online resources such as Sun of Citation Machine, where you can plug in the information and then it will go ahead and create the citation for you. There's also tools out there that are more than just for citing sources. Some of these tools are really robust and they allow you to collect and organize your resources along with citing them and share them. Zotero is one of my favorite ones. I've done a lot of work where I put a lot of information in Zotero. You can load in the full text of the articles. You could attach the PDFs of those articles. You can put in notes. And you can also, so you can store them, you can organize them. I've created different folders for different projects. I've shared them with colleagues and fellow researchers. And it's because it's an online tool, I can get to my bibliography and my resources from anywhere. I don't have to be at my home computer. We also have access to EndNote through Science Direct, which is where we get Medline and biological abstracts. And so this allows you to save resources in EndNote. It's pretty similar to Zotero because you can collect and you can organize your sources into folders. Because it comes through Science Direct, it really is more helpful for the biological abstracts and Medline, but you can use it for anything. And finally, Mendeley. Mendeley is pretty similar to Zotero. It does have a pretty neat feature on it, though, that you can load in the PDFs like Zotero of the articles, but you can go through and you can annotate them. You can highlight different things. You can add notes to them. So it makes it a little bit more useful in terms of that. And it also is an online tool, so you can access your resources anywhere, anytime. So what are the basics of citations? This screen kind of shows you the basics of citing a journal article. You can see some differences between them with APA and MLA. Those are the two that I'm concentrating on. For example, APA uses the last name and then just the initials of the author. One of the reasons for doing that is because then it is gender neutral. And so by looking at those initials, you can't tell if the author was a male or a female. And that might be important in psychological research, which is where APA comes out of. But it could be important in other fields too. The title of the article, as I said earlier, only the first letter of the title or proper names are capitalized. Then you have the title of the journal. In MLA, you'll notice that they use the whole last name, first name, and middle name, and that the title of the article is all the major words are capitalized and it's put in quotations. They also include day, month, and year of a publication, and then finally at the end they include the medium of publication. So if it's online, you'd put online. If it's print, you would put print. Books are going to be pretty similar, except that it's going to include the location and the publisher. Same thing in MLA. It's going to be pretty similar to a journal article, except city of publication and publisher is also going to be included, and the medium of publication. The other difference between MLA and APA, big difference, is where the year is put. In APA, it's a second item. In MLA, it's further down. So this next screen has an example of what a citation would look like when you put it all together. I provided you with an APA citation for a book and an MLA citation, and so you can kind of see the way it's the same and the way it's different. Same thing here. This is a journal article citation, so it kind of gives you an example of how it should look when you are creating those citations. The next slide, we're covering in-text citations. So what this shows you is with such as, for example, on the top one with APA, when I include the name of the person in the text of the resource, I would put then the year following that name. So I've got according to Jones, and that's from a 1998 resource, and so I would put 1998 in parentheses. If I don't use the name of the author in the text, then I would use a author date citation style for the in-text citations. And honestly, I have a page number there. You do not have to put a page number unless it is a direct quotation. MLA, same thing. When I used Wordsworth in the sentence, then I just put the page number with the resource. I don't always have to put the date. And then with the second one where Wordsworth is not used in the sentence, then I would use the author page number. All right. So I've got on here kind of a let's practice, but I've already given you the citations for these two different resources. This shows you a little bit the difference in the two of them and how they work together. So this provides just a little quiz that we can run through to take a look at it to show you identifying citations. So this first citation, one of the things, we want to look at several things and figure out, is this a journal article, a book, or a book chapter? So in looking at this, we can kind of look to see that it has a title, and then it has a source title, and then it has a volume, an issue number, and pages, but it does not have publishing information. So okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do a new share so that I can go to this resource. There we go. Okay, so now we're back. Sorry about that. So with this, I can see that this has two titles. So it has a title and it has a second source title. So it could either be a journal article or a book chapter. But then I can also, by looking at it, see that it has a volume number and an issue number, and then pages. And there's no other publishing information, such as a city, state, or publisher name. So I'm going to say that this one is, go ahead, take a minute, figure out which one it is, but I'm going to go ahead and pick journal article. And that is correct. All right, so on this next one, when we take a look at it, we see that it has the author, the title, and it does have publishing information. It does not have two titles, just has a single title. So this is an MLA format, and because of this publishing information, it's either going to be a book or book chapter, but because it only has a single title, I'm going to select book on this one. This next one, you'll notice, has the authors, and then it has Civil War as one title, and then it kind of really gives you a clue in it where it says the Journal of Economic Literature. And so for this one, it's an MLA format, and because it has Journal of Economic Literature, I'm going to select journal title. And we are totally correct on that one. On this next one, it has the author, it has Rush to Disaster, Succession, and Slave's Revenge, and then it has Succession Winter. So it has two titles. So it could be a journal article or a book chapter, but then it has editors' names and publishing information. So for this one, because of that publisher and information right here, I'm going to select book chapter. And we are absolutely correct with that one. Two more. Here we go. So this one has the author. This is in APA format because we can see that the date is second. And then it has the title of a book, publisher, and I gave that away. It has the title, publisher, and a state. Because it doesn't have a second title, doesn't have a journal name, doesn't have pages, we're going to go with a book on this one. And we are right. And the last one, Cockrell T, the date is second, so it's in APA format. It has two titles again. It's got a first title, and then it says it's in, and it has an editor name, and then it provides another title and the page numbers. And then we have publishing information. So that publishing information tells me that it's not a journal article, but that it's a book chapter. So I'm going to go ahead, check my answer, and we are absolutely correct. All right, so that, congratulations, we scored all of them correctly, and that allows us to be able to go through and look at the information and be able to kind of practice with that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and switch my sharing again, do a new share, and let's go back to the slideshow. Okay, and so the very last thing is, if you have any questions, don't pull your hair out. Feel free to either contact me, and I've given you my contact information here, and including my phone number, or you can also just contact the library help desk, and we will help you with your citation questions. Thank you for watching this and taking the time to go through this. Have a great day, and make sure that you cite it right.